to me, Chris Nesi. It is Sunday night, November 29th, 2020, and ISTE Live 2020 is in the books for day one. Very exciting. Very, very exciting. Let me just say that this is just very exciting to be doing the live stream. If you're new to my content and what I do, I'm a podcaster, high school teacher, university professor, and welcome to the House of EdTech Live. I'm going to be doing this every night this week at 10 p.m. Eastern, every night of ISTE, and this is not just me monologuing. This is a live show. I want you to be a part of it. So how can you do that? Well, I don't have a phone number. I mean, I do have a phone number, but if you want to be a part of what we're doing here, go to chrisnesi.com/join. Okay, chrisnesi.com/join is how you can jump aboard and be a part of what we are doing here tonight. Everybody who is checking in on the chat, please. The chat is a back channel, a place to share, and a place to connect with each other. And that's what's most important. Not only now, but it's the holiday season, and there's a great opportunity to connect with lots of people. So let me know what's going on in the chat. Hello to Batsheva Frankel. Welcome aboard, fellow podcaster, fellow content creator. Saying the sound is strange. I hope that's not the case. I don't want the sound to be strange. My mic sounds off. All right, let's figure this out. The joy of live. And hopefully that fixes it. All right. We do have a caller. Right. Okay. So thank you to Janeth and Jeremy. All right. So everything should be good now as people who are 30 seconds behind on YouTube certainly catch up. All right. If you're checking in on Periscope, come on over to chrisnesi.com/live. If you're checking us out on Twitch, that's awesome. Just everybody can chat. I can see all the comments. So thank you. Oh, my podcast compadre is checking in. What's up, AJ? Good evening. And I'm not going to waste any time. So we're going to go right to the phone, so to speak. And we're going to bring up Nate.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
What's going on, Nate? Good. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, man. It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. Where are you coming to us from?
I'm in Indianapolis.
All right. So I mean,
so it's
you're behind.
Yeah. I'm right. I am behind. I think it's like what 10 o'clock right now. I gotta look at my clock here. Yeah. So it's been a good long day, but it's been nice. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a fun day of football and decorating for the holidays. So I really can't complain.
Yeah, definitely. It just started to get cold here in Indy, and I see about you is here. We actually talked about you here a couple months ago about our book, which was kind of fun. Small world.
And it gets smaller every day. And doing a live stream like this,
yeah,
we will definitely find out how small the world is.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's because I was talking to Matt the other day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Chris, edits our podcast for Google Teacher Tribe." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So it's small world.
Yep. Shout out to Matt and Casey and the Google Teacher Podcast.
Yes.
No episode tomorrow. They'll be back next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But it was weird because today we kicked everything off. And then on my presentation, both myself and the people behind me both couldn't get our screens to share. It was so tech issues. It's gonna happen, right?
Yeah. It will. So all right. So you mentioned that you are an ISTE presenter, so you shared some content today. Before we get to that, first, let everybody know who's watching, who you are, your role in education.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. So, hi everybody. Sorry, we jumped right in there, didn't we? My name's Nate. My name's Nate Ridgeway. I'm a teacher in Avon, Indiana, and this will be my 7th year teaching. And I just here in the last year kind of my background is we published the third Ditch book in the Ditch That textbook series, which was about differentiation with technology in the classroom. And then I also finished a master's in history, but I come with a background in special ed and UDL. And so that's kind of what led me to getting to ISTE here today to do an ISTE live presentation for them on podcasting, actually, of all things. So that's kind of my background.
All right, Nate, you did a presentation on podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it. Let's go. What do you got? What
yeah,
share with the world?
Well, unfortunately, all they got was my face, but I will be more than happy to type the link to the chat here for everybody, so they can actually see the whole presentation. So basically the gist of what I was able to talk about is how I've been able to do podcasting with my students here in my classroom for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've had a really lucky opportunity that I was allowed to actually flip my classes for a long time, which has been really helpful because I'm one of those crazy history teachers who doesn't give essays. And so then I have to come up with all these other creative ways to assess my students. And one of those ways is podcasting. And so I basically, when I started having students want to explore this actual topic and want to try it as a way to demonstrate their learning, I decided I should probably put a handbook together about it. So that's what I decided to make and then share with the people at ISTE today, which was nice.
Now, just from a technical perspective, the link that you shared didn't show up in the chat. So if you put it, you found the private chat, I will be able to put it in and then people will be able to click on it.
Definitely.
So that cuts down on the spammers. Not that spammers are going to come hang out on my live stream, but
we're totally fine. There we go. Just bit.ly/podcastridge, which I was also trying to repeat multiple times a day, because I couldn't get my darn screen to share. But anyways, so I got a chance to talk about how UDL factors into that world, which is in a whole bunch of ways. And I wish we only had 8 minutes to talk, so I had to go very, very quickly. But there's some amazing research out there that shows how it benefits. Making podcasts benefits everybody from English language learners to students who are trying to learn, decoding skills that they're, beginning to acquire, sentence fluency and things like that. And so I basically took that, and then I also later on had the chance to talk about how podcasting can be an especially accessible medium because with UDL, the whole kind of theme is, the more access, the better, right? And so with that, then, I've been diving into apps that are very odd and very strange. And one of the ones that I found was actually called Descript, which is it's spelled exactly how you might sound, like it might sound. And I have a couple of students who are deaf or hard of hearing. And what Descript allows them to do with podcasting is it allows them to actually type. They can record samples of their voice, and then they can type out what they would like to say in the podcast, even though they can't go back and make edits and hear it. And it will the program that they have in there, which is really cool. It's called Lyrebird. It allows them to reproduce their voice into the podcast and edit it, even though they can't hear it, which is really, really cool. And so I got a chance to kind of explore that today, which was fun.
I love Descript. I'm actually pulling it up right now, so hopefully that'll work here in the live stream.
It is AJS. What site tour am I using with my students to record? I've had students do a variety of things. If they're brand new to it and they just are looking for a good place to start, I recommend Flipgrid, and then you just have them black out their screen. So that way it's just audio only, which works really, really well. If they want to get a little bit more fancy with the editing, I point them towards Anchor, which is free and also really, really easy to share. And then I have some students who go really sophisticated with it, and that's when I start recommending other apps out there to them. So that's a good question.
Don't worry, we're still here.
Oh, okay. I got really concerned because I didn't hear you anymore.
No worries. Let me again, this is why we do things live. All right, let's see what happens if I do this. All right, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
All right, so maybe I'll work on sharing my screen another night, but Descript is awesome. It's Descript.
Yeah, it's great.
.com. It's great. It's you can use it on the desktop.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of podcasters using it to, generate transcripts. But the cool thing is you can record your audio and then you can edit the audio simply by, and I don't know if you said this, but editing and deleting the text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. I actually had the chance to talk to, it was one of the manager at the company. And I said, have you thought about using this and marketing it in education for thinking about doing that for like students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and they had never thought of using it for that way before. So I feel like a lot of what we do with UDL is about rethinking the things that we already do and making them more accessible to everybody else. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring in more people because I can. So let's two's company. Here's a party. What is up, Batsheva Franco?
Hello. I just want to check and see if everybody's having the same issue with kind of an echo.
I don't hear it currently, but
if you're still listening to me and you're also in StreamYard, then you'd hear YouTube and...
Got it. Okay, it is just me. There you go. Okay.
Oh, Batsheva, you should have been there when they were backstage doing all the ISTE stuff, because they had us listening in Discord and giving us like stage directions. And then we also had like the audio coming through in the actual presentation at the same time. It was crazy complicated.
I'm worried. My presentation is on Wednesday. So I'm hoping all the bugs are fixed by then, and I'm hoping that I know what I'm doing by then, that I, in terms of the tech and how to interact with it and stuff. So, but yeah, this is my third virtual conference. So.
This piece of it is the equivalent of if you call the radio, you have to turn down your radio when you're on the air.
That made so much sense. That really made sense.
Actually, you know what? Speaking of making sense, this is a great get by the PR people behind the scenes, because this man I was just introduced to, and I'm so excited because Dr. Quentin J. Lee was a part of the, would you call it an opening keynote? Or, because you're top 3 voices today for ISTE.
Yes, it was a part of the opening keynote. Hey, everyone. It was awesome. I had an absolutely amazing time just being able to share some of my voice with the world.
For those that didn't see it, and I watched it earlier today because I needed to prepare for this. So I heard the story. You had a bunch of stories about some students you've worked with. You and I are both getting physically fit, although I'm not having a student help me. Spoiler. But please give us a little insight into what you shared today.
Well, the thing is that school education has definitely saved my life. And as educators, we definitely have to believe in the power of relationships and building relationships with our students, with each other. And it goes beyond just the classroom standards that we're all trying to cover. Right now with COVID-19, the 2 things that we can focus on is definitely communication and customer service. And by doing those things, we're going to meet the communities that we serve, and we're going to be able to reach kids beyond the screen that they're hiding behind. So just really the power of student relationships is something that is going to help with the social emotional learning piece that we're missing right now, as well as for the common good of educators who got in education to touch kids. And we can't touch them right now because we're behind the screen, but we can touch them in so many different ways, being creative. And that's just really the story. Just build relationships with students, build relationships with communities, and you will watch your school soar.
Now, of course, I'm going to have to dive a little deeper.
Oh, go ahead.
You do currently serve, you're a middle school principal?
High school principal.
High school principal. I'm a high school teacher, so God bless us both.
Yes.
Quentin, how do you, as a school administrator, during these uncertain times, again, virtual, hybrid, how are you as a building leader able to still foster these relationships? I imagine it's tough when you're in person, but what does that look like for you as an administrator virtually?
Well, the weird thing is that before the school shut down, I actually came down with the flu before COVID. So I was already out for a week. So when we shut down, I had to find ways to connect with my kids, and I just couldn't take it as we're just going to be at home. So I created this thing called Kicking It with Dr. Lee, where I was actually doing 2 broadcasts per week with my students jump on doing a Zoom call or whatever kind of call. We went through several different methods, but we would all talk. I would give them COVID-19 updates. We would do ACT prep. We would work on character building. It was huge. And then I started doing it with the parents, and then I started doing it with other educators. So Kicking It with Dr. Lee really evolved from just an opportunity to reach my kids. The last session we did with the entire student body, I had over 95 students that joined on the line to talk to their principal in July, and they weren't forced to. It was simply, we put it out there, you can jump on. And I had some teachers jumped on the line, and they were able to greet the kids as well. So it became an opportunity to be really creative. I love making videos with my students, and just whatever it takes, that's what we have to do. A lot of schools are complaining about not necessarily having parental involvement. We all have that, but our parents live on social media. So take the school to social media. We became extremely transparent in what we were doing. We would put things out on Twitter, Facebook, and we would broadcast the great things that we're doing inside our classroom, showcase our teachers. And then we realized that the narrative about our school changed, not because we were forcing it to change. We simply opened the doors and opened up and took off the blinders and allowed people to see the great things that their kids were accomplishing and the hard work of the teachers.
Were these things that you were doing as a school district and a community before the world changed and now it's just amplified? Or was this like, what do we do? And this is what it is.
We've been doing this since day one. Even when I was a band director, I was doing crazy, silly things, just trying to connect with kids. I think back to my own schooling, and of course, I was in school for 13 years if you include kindergarten, but I can only really name 5 to 6 teachers that made an impact on my life. So I don't want to be one of those educators where you just go through the class and you get a grade and you move on. No, I need to be above and beyond to make sure that I'm one of those people you never forget. So I incorporate that into my principalship as well. And I empower my teachers to do the same, so that every kid has an issue trying to figure out who's my favorite teacher, because there's so many people vying for that spot. But this is something we've been doing. This to meet the kids. This has been going. I've been viral now, I think 3 or 4 times. But I went viral the first time I hit the Quan at a pet rally and had over 1 million views in a weekend on Facebook, and it was totally crazy. I've made a couple different videos, but this last video with the MC Hammer remake went viral extremely quick. I was able to really be exposed, and people think, oh, you're just doing this because of the video. No, the video just opened the door. I've always done relationships with kids, and I talk about it some. The fact that I've been able to meet MC Hammer, Said Entertainer, Anderson Cooper, just all these different people, all that's cool. But the main important thing is that educators now know that we can be creative, we have a voice, and we can change not only our classrooms, but the communities that we serve.
I like that a lot, because I have met no celebrities, and creativity is one of the verbs of my classroom. You know, I have 4 verbs in my room, and creativity is a cornerstone for what I want my students to be able to do. So again, like you're saying, celebrities or not, it's there, and the kids are getting value. You're making those connections. And I think one of the big takeaways from hearing you speak earlier today was relationships. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Even with, I had a production crew today, I guess you can say, but Zay, which I brought him on camera and thanked him publicly. Zay was there, and then another teacher was there, and I have huge relationships with both of them, and they actually both work out with me and push, and we always, encourage each other. And that's the kind of environment that I believe that schools across the world need to have, environments where kids feel comfortable talking to adults about what's really going on. And and I tell my teachers, we definitely have to make sure we're hitting those content standards, but we got to make sure we're helping these kids with life, because 20 years down the line, it's not going to matter what formula they use. It's going to matter what skills they have to solve these problems. So relationships, that's the key. That's the way to go if you want to see a school move.
Nate, Batsheva, questions, comments for Quentin?
No, you just nailed it completely. And I love what you're doing in every way on the, micro level, on the macro level. It's really wonderful. And
yeah, I think it's I don't Dr. Lee, where are you currently teaching?
I'm in Alabama.
Okay, you're in Alabama. Okay, so here in Indiana, we're all over the place in terms of like school closures. So there's no uniformity anywhere. But this coming week will be the 7th schedule change that I will have had with my students in terms of in person or hybrid or completely remote. And I will say the one thing for me, and I will completely agree on what you said, is the student relationship part. And a weird, odd byproduct of occasionally seeing my students in person is that those connections, are able to happen. So I really appreciate hearing that message.
Yeah, and I think that's the formulating those authentic relationships. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will say, well, you can do this worksheet. That's not how you build a relationship. Relationships have to be, and our kids, they can detect, this is just an exercise. But really getting to know, one really cool thing is this past weekend, I went out of town for Thanksgiving, and I had a student that left my school. He would have been a senior, and he was in Huntsville. So we actually met up for lunch or for breakfast. And while he was my student, it was very difficult, very difficult. We did not see eye to eye, but we always respected each other and had that mutual trust. And so being able to sit down and have breakfast with him, and then I was like, hey, I'm not going to let you I'm not going to hold you up. I want you to get back to your day. And he's like, well, I don't have anything to do. If you want to leave, just tell me you want to leave. And I was like, no. And that meant a lot to me because that was his way of saying, I'm enjoying this time. Let's keep it going. So that's what it's about. It's really about reaching beyond the textbooks, reaching beyond the lockers and touching their heart so that when they become grown, they will tell their kids about you and your legacy can continue to live on beyond the 9 weeks grading period. And so we're on a blended. I've got about 25% of my kids that are doing virtual only. And then the rest of them are coming back on blended. And we've been doing it and it's been working. It's been working fairly well. I'll take that, being able to see the kids. Of course, we can't do all the things that we did beforehand, but at least they're able to get in our building. We can continue to love on them. We can continue to make connections with the parents and just be there. There's no cookie cutter approach on how this is supposed to look. No one can put out a product because it's different for every community. I've got grandparents that are raising grandkids that are absolutely scared right now, but I have to still be that sounding board of what's best in the interest of this kid and not put my individual views on it, but what's going to be best for the kid. And that comes by having those real relationships.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I've struggled with, and so much with this, is authentic assessment right now in the middle of this. And I had some very open disagreements with like giving kids finals, and thinking that's going to be equitable right now at all. I'm wondering what
actually,
I'm sure you have thoughts on this as
Nate,
well.
About finals and tests and quizzes.
But I would love to hear your thoughts on, how we can authentically assess students right now and what they know.
All right, so I'll just go and put it out there. There's no one way that's going to solve everything.
Oh yeah.
And we have to realize that not only are we dealing with the emotional trauma from COVID-19, we've got to deal with the academic trauma that is occurring. Equity has been magnified right now. We always talked about the achievement gap, but now you have to throw all this on top of the achievement gap. I think that my personal opinion is that we should look at all of our standards and only address the power standards that we really need.
Yeah.
So if there's 10 standards that we're supposed to be covering in a grading period, and we know that 6 of those are filled with fluff, then we shouldn't even really be looking at those 6 standards. We need to look at what's going to be what we need to make sure our kids can master to be successful at the next level, and to try to help improve their ACT scores or whatever they need for college acceptance, and just to have those life skills.
I want to
go ahead.
So I was just going to touch on something that you said that's the most important things for them to master the skills, that it's not about the grade. And I think this is our time to, really throw that out and work on mastery. And then you create authentic assessments. This is like my favorite thing in the world, is to create authentic and creative assessments that really show what students know, and in a way that shows whether they're mastering the material. And then you give them feedback, not grades. You give them feedback, and then they work towards mastery. And if that happens, Nate, I think this is the exact time. And it is so easy to do remotely. I mean, I'm coaching teachers on how to do this all the time and coming up with the most fantastic things that they never thought of. And some of them work better, something obviously work better in person, and some work better remotely. But there's some things you can do remotely that you can do better remotely than you can in person. So, trying to take advantage of the things that actually are better about it and trying to deal with the things that are not. Like, you were saying about how you were still developing those relationships, even though they couldn't happen the way that you previously, created those relationships. You found the ways. Okay, so what are the ways in this situation that I can still move forward? And it's the same thing with assessments, I think. What are the ways that we can still move forward?
Well, just being honest, I think that COVID-19 has really exposed the profession of education and teaching. And I think it's made us better educators because we're no longer wasting time. In my 100%. Building, I know they say not to say it, knock on wood or whatever, but discipline is almost non-existent on campus because when you walk into the classrooms, like teachers are getting after it. We can't waste any time. We can't waste any time whatsoever inside the classroom. So that's given us an opportunity to help develop our teachers even more. We do weekly development on Wednesdays. They come in and we give them, it's called CORE, it's professional development, and it's based upon things that we need to accomplish as a school on campus. So we look at assessments, we look at how to plan your lesson. We actually give them planning days to plan so that they can have the in-person as well as the virtual. And those are things that we like to do because I'm a parent, I have things to go on after school. We try to embed most of that during the school day so that they can have all the support that they need. And that's just the difference, mindset. Everyone doesn't have that mindset, but I'm a relational servant type person. I definitely want my teachers to feel supported and have all the resources that they need. But getting back to the assessment piece, we are doing a ton of remediation on our campus. Because even though we're high school, we're still teaching reading because there's some fundamental gaps that have not been closed. It's not a point to blame. This is our issue. This is what we need to fix. So we've got kids that are going to intervention classes. They're being pulled out. Like when you come to our campus, you won't see kids in the hall unless they're going to intervention. And we're doing that for math, reading, and English. So we're not wasting the time when the kids come on campus, they're in class or they're receiving remediation. And we did it for the first 9 weeks. We're tweaking it. We're changing it. I created it's called an after-school academic detention for kids that are not completing assignments. They get to stay 1 hour after school every other Tuesday or Thursday with us. And I have teachers that provide tutoring during that time. And I mean, we have a lot of kids that show up, but then they walk out and they say, thank you. I wouldn't have took the time to do my work had you not created this opportunity. So we were able to see kids that were failing move to actually passing by getting these assignments created. And the teachers, we asked them, hey, what's going on? They said kids aren't completing their work. So we created programs so that can help the kids create the work so we can eliminate that problem. So that's just the thing. You've got to be able to move with whatever your school needs. And school leaders all over, I encourage you, if you did not change your mission and your vision statement before this year started, then you're already behind the 8 ball because we can't have the same mission and vision that we had before COVID-19. It's got to change, and it's got to change to address what we have now, or we're not vision or missions minded about the practices that we have going on our campus. So like I said, that's just a different way of thinking. But I think that we are in a time right now that thinking different is what's going to be best for everyone that's involved.
Apple had it right when they came up with that slogan 30, 40 years ago, think differently. And just to kind of reset it, because we've got viewers coming in from, very cool to see, all over the world. We are recapping ISTE. Today is day 1 of ISTE Live 2020. Thank you for joining us and keeping the comments coming in the chat. We're currently talking with Nate Ridgeway, Batsheva Frankel, and we are also joined by Dr. Quentin Lee, who is one of the keynote speakers of the opening ceremonies of the EdTech Olympics that is ISTE, which is really cool. So as people are asking some questions, I want to go back to a couple of comments I saw. AJ had asked in the chat, and AJ is a friend of mine, co-host of Podcast PD, how do you keep those live Zooms moving so you're not just talking to little squares with the cameras off?
Right. Hey, sometimes the cameras are off, and I get that because growing up, I would say that my living condition would not be something that I would want all my friends to see. So what you have to do is you have to have the relationship piece where they're comfortable enough to let you know. So we played games. We would play, I'd just call out random objects and they would go running through their house. And then you would hear their parents like, stop running in my house. And they'll tell them what they're doing. Then the parents will start running. But just really creating a fun atmosphere and being engaging. We can't just say, hey, how do you feel about this? Just type it in the chat box and move on. Like providing that authentic feedback and engaging so that your class online session is not something they have to go to, it's something they want to go to. So I heard one of the sessions I had, Dr. Beelan said, he told his faculty, during COVID-19, we all binge watched something on Netflix. And he said, you don't finish the season unless it's good. Don't let the kids cancel your season inside your classroom by boring with the practices that you have in place. Yeah. And so when I thought about it, I was like, I will literally sit down and waste about 3 to 4 hours on just watching Superstore or some other show. So like literally make sure that it's engaging, make sure that it's exciting, because we don't want to go to boring stuff. So why would our kids want to go, especially when they're at home doing some of the remote learning and it's either play the game or jump online. So make that opportunity in that time that you have with them online and as engaging as possible. Now, I'm not telling you to get up and do circus tricks all over the computer. No, don't do that. But make it to where it's so engaging that you're capturing their attention and that you're challenging them. Because once you work on that relationship piece, they'll do it because they don't want to disappoint you.
Yeah.
And also just to,
yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Oh, go ahead, Nate.
I was just going to say, for me, it's always becomes, because I teach history, and the question for me always becomes, is my lesson worth remembering? You know, and if I can get to that point, then I think I've accomplished something. The other thing that what you said, Dr. Lee, reminded me of is I had a student who was in my classroom who said, Mr. Ridgeway, I know I'm failing in here, but this is my favorite class right now. And he was struggling because of other issues that he had going on with COVID at home. And it was nothing, you know, to do with, you know, something that was going on, you know, just inside the confines of the, you know, of my classroom. But he's like, I love coming here, even I'm going to have to stop, you know, because they're forcing me to drop it. But like, you know, and that for me meant more than, you know, so like a student who almost was succeeding and still wanted to keep coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had a situation where a student, well, it was one of the rare occasions, he did get in trouble. And he came in the room where we were at, and he just basically had a meltdown. And so he was raising his voice, and my assistant principal said, hey, go back out, let's try this again. He came back in, was even more forceful. I sat there and I let him get everything out, because we have to realize is that these kids are going through a lot right now. And they don't know. That's why we're in place to try to help them. So we let him get it all out, and then told him to go to the restroom, get himself together. And I went to the restroom with him. Of course, I had no mask on. And I said, hey, look, what's going on? Because this is not you. And got to some deep roots of really what was going on. And he just didn't know how to process it. And I told him, I said, hey, look, I love you enough to tell you when you're right and when you're wrong. What you're feeling is not wrong. How you expressed it is wrong. And that's what we need to work on. So I said, honestly, you owe everyone an apology, because you didn't process that anger that you were feeling the correct way. Let's process it correct and let's move on. He thanked me. We moved on. We were able to get him the resources and the help that he needed. And that's what we should be doing. We all have days that we just feel like screaming. And I mean, we can't, but we do have those days. So that created an opportunity to establish a relationship with him. And he's going to be able to go tell his homeboys, hey, Dr. Lee allowed me to do blah, blah, blah. And he really cares about us. And that's going to show that mom, like, oh, they're not out there just trying to write my kid up. They're actually trying to see what's going on with them. So it's got to look different. It's got to look different. Like you said, I love that phrase. I'm going to use it with my faculty. Like, is this lesson worth remembering? We can't do lessons because we did it when we were in school and we thought it was really cool. Like dissecting a pig was cool. But if it's not aligned to a standard, then we shouldn't be trying to dissect a pig. And even though we have all these wonderful tech tools, if they're not in tune with what we're doing inside the classroom, we're wasting our time and we're frustrating a lot of kids because of something that we thought was cool. So just really being there for what the kids need.
Also, you know, we don't need to tap dance and do a show. We need to engage the students by actually allowing them to also create the content and be interactive in the lesson. And the other thing that you were saying as well is when we do a lesson, it's also great to ask the students, how did that work for you? Like, how could I have done that better? What's the thing, you know, what works for you? What doesn't? Should I do more of that? Should we try this? You know, and really involve them, which, you know, for sure in high school, but you could do that even when the kids are young. And having them reflect on their own learning as well. Like, how was that lesson for you? You know, not just reflecting on what I'm doing as the teacher, but also what are you doing as the learner? And helping, like I said, and helping them to create the content and deliver the content in interesting ways. And that I think also can be very engaging.
one of the things I did just last week, a colleague of mine and I'm 100% virtual. So I haven't been at my school since March. And a buddy of mine, we were talking, we're both social studies teachers, and we both decided to give our students simple Google form, 5-6 questions. How do you think virtual learning is going for you? Not just in our class, but overall, and just some real quick hit questions just to gain a sense of what do they find value in. One of the questions I asked was, what would you like to see more of? And I gave them a couple of choices and left it open-ended as well. And it was just really nice to get that feedback. And some of it surprised me to the point where I reached out to my vice principal and said, I did this survey. Could we have a conversation just so maybe we can have two sets of eyes interpreting the data that was collected? And we had a nice conversation, and, we're going to try some tools. And now my students will buy in even more because, Mr. Nessie asked what I think. And now I need to show them that I actually care about what they said and actually use that input. So that's also important too.
Yeah, student voice is definitely more than just a box to check off for certification. So really taking what they say into consideration and allowing them to see that their voice is important. And I sometimes, like with my kids, I'm like, oh Lord, here they go again. Because they know that if you want something on our campus, you bring it to me, we talk about it. And if you can convince me that it's going to benefit students, we're going to have it. We have dress days for every football game. We were able to play football. We had dress days for every football game. And, it was twice a week because the kids were split and what days they come. So it seems like we were coming to tacky day every week, but that was something that we did, something small, but it made them think that things were back to normal, how it used to be. Very small to us. It didn't cost us anything at all to have tacky days, but it meant the world to the kids. Even during homecoming week, we had a virtual events, like virtual things where we would be in one room and just broadcast it to everyone else and broadcast it to the kids at home. And it was fun. It was different. It wasn't what we normally do. Even like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And it was just simply a Kahoot that we picked up and broadcasted. And kids were answering questions. But it gave us the time to all be together on one virtual space and love on each other just like we would have if we were in the gymnasium. So just really being creative and just, like you said, no tap dancing unless you're classically trained. But really just making that connection and letting kids see, hey, you got this. And that was another thing, like, listening to our kids talk, our kids said, even though we were going through all this, every single teacher we had our backs and they supported us and they let us know it was going to be okay and they talked to us. And that's what I love to hear. So as a principal, I call parents of kids who are not doing good. And they always tell me, oh, well, I've talked to so-and-so, I've talked to this. That reassures that our teachers are going above and beyond to make those connections. Because the first time that a parent should hear the kid is failing is not on a report card. It should be in conversations beforehand. And if we're really working on our RTI process, we should have a plan in place and already know what's going on before the report cards come out. That's another conversation for another day.
And real quick, just because we had people ask in the chat, yeah, we are here till 11 o'clock Eastern time as we are recapping ISTE. And if you want to hop aboard, make a comment, share your thoughts, get your voice out there, go to chrisnessie.com/join, and we will get you right on. And as I'm saying it, somebody does it. So my voice works.
Hi.
So let's welcome Brandy to the stream. Brandy Wright, where are you coming to us from?
Hey guys, I currently live in Virginia Beach, but as you guys heard earlier, I teach in Newport News, Virginia, but I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Wait a second. You look just a little bit different than I saw you earlier today, folks. I now have 2 of the 3 people on who were in the opening keynote today. And actually, fun fact, Megan, who was the lead voice, she was a previous guest of my podcast, so I already know Megan. So
nice.
I was definitely too cool for middle school, and maybe she'll pop in. Who knows? But Brandy, first, thank you for sharing your voice today in the opening session. Applause to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so fun. It was definitely a surreal experience, that's for sure.
Now, for those that missed it, just give us a little recap of what you shared.
Sure. So I was previously a district technology coordinator. And so this year I jumped into the classroom. And so people were quite shocked, and I didn't realize it was this big deal until people said it was a big deal. And so I was just sharing that with someone else a couple of weeks ago. And they asked me to talk about really what that meant from going, from a district position to going into the classroom, and what some people might have perceived to be a step back or a demotion, but I really considered it as definitely a career upgrade. Like I just told people, this was absolutely the real career upgrade of my life. But then also just sharing some different things that I've done, even with my students. And so one of the biggest things is that I am considered to be a master remixer. And so my friends, my coworkers, they call it brandifying things, right? So just being able to take something and remix it for a different purpose, but then also helping my students to harness what I call our superpower, and what considers, what makes your power your actual superpower. And that's just sharing it with others. And then I realized, so Dr. Lee, I was able to go back and watch your speech, and I thought, wow, the common theme of care. And I really appreciated that. And that it was, of course, we don't know each other. We didn't know what we were going to speak on. And then when I heard him talk about that, I was like, it really is the thing to do, that we have to care for our students even now more than ever, because we're not with them physically. And even as I was looking at the pictures, Dr. Lee and his students and the teachers, and I thought, gosh, we can't even do these things anymore. And so we have to work harder at being more intentional and caring for our students and showing them that we care. And so I've had some very just extraordinary experiences with my students so far. So that's what I was sharing.
And it's amazing because both of your messages, like you just said, Brandy, they resonated. They play off each other. They work really well together. And that message here on the first day of ISTE is really important, because if we as teachers, administrators, all those invested in education aren't doing or can't do this basic relationship building, fostering community, communicating with our stakeholders, the technology doesn't mean anything. The apps, the tools,
absolutely,
forget it. It doesn't. There's no app that's going to do what you guys are talking about. There are apps that help it.
And I think that's the misconception. People think that technology is the end all. It's not. Technology is just a tool to continue to drive the standards and drive relationships. And so we can't be so techie focused that we totally miss the soft skills, because that's what employers are saying. Like, we need soft skills. We need people to be able to say yes and no and critically think. And so technology is just a tool, and we can't use technology to be a glorified worksheet. Like, it's just simply a tool. But just really empowering educators to go beyond. Like, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen when we get back, whenever we do get back in person, because I believe that educators that are going to stick this out, that really care about kids, are going to create some of the most caring and welcoming environments. And school is going to receive the notoriety it should, especially educators. Like, we've carried this nation on our backs for so many years. We've always been underpaid and underappreciated, but right now everyone understands the necessity of what we do. And that, to me, I think COVID-19, yeah, it's bad, but we can't always look at the bad. Let's look at the good. It showcased what we do each and every day, and it shows people that you have to be of a certain caliber to be an educator. And that's where we need to reside. That's where we need to rest. That we are the unsung heroes. And of course, we definitely pay homage to all those that are on the front line, but we're essential as well, because we're caring for the kids and putting these kids back together. They're coming to us so broken.
And I think, like, because my background is in technology, people assumed that I would always be tech forward. And so maybe that's a surprise too. Like, I didn't even mention any technology that I used, because that's not what comes to the forefront. Now, that's what allowed me to be able to be a virtual teacher more easily, right? Because that wasn't the hump that I had to overcome. I didn't have to overcome understanding Zoom and knowing what tech tools to use, right? I had to really I was able to focus on connecting with the students intentionally. I was able to focus on building relationships. I was able to focus on really, building engaging lessons and doing things like that. So yeah, that was a plus, but it's absolutely not the technology. And the kids know, I mean, they don't care about doing all of these different fancy things with technology. They're struggling. And I've had some really heartfelt conversations with students when they apologize for coming to my class late because they were fixing their little sister lunch, right? When they say, I'm so sorry I was late to your class, but I had one kid, 7th grade, told me that he had to fix his entire family's lunch and get dinner prepared because his mom had left for work and his dad was on his way home. And this, and so these are the things, these are challenges that I just never could have imagined. And it has nothing to do with technology. There's no amount of technology that can fix those problems.
And like, think about all the time that we spent before, like, it wasn't necessarily like a huge focus of mine, but like all the focus that we had before, like making sure that students are at a class on time. And now we're like, I'm just glad you're here. And, it's like, why are we worrying about dress code? Not so much anymore. Doesn't really like, I mean, I'm glad that you have clothes on, you have showed up in my room, and I'm glad to see you as a human being. Like that's what's important right now. And for me, that's been one of the kind of silver linings out of all of this, is that I feel like, and I'm hoping that this continues after all this, as my mom calls it, COVIDity, is over. And that is just the reprioritization of what's actually important in education.
Absolutely.
Also, I think that this microscope, or this sort of open vision that we get to actually see students' lives, in the reality. And before, we were in our classrooms or whatever, and so teachers can sort of ignore that students have this life outside of school. So they come into the classroom and and they say things like, leave your personal life behind, as if I know I personally can't do that, and so I can't imagine that students can do that. And so now we can see, and hopefully we all learn, that they have these lives. We just get to see it. It wasn't like it wasn't happening like that before. The kid who needs to make his whole family lunch probably had to do that before, and make dinner. We just didn't see it. And maybe there's more that they have to do now because they have more responsibility, especially if they both parents working and they have to work outside of the house or even inside the house. They might take on more responsibility, but those problems that existed before. We just pretended like they didn't because they were in our classroom. But we need to remember that lesson, right? That of getting that peek into people's lives, right? Which I also think was nice in the time when, the students could also see, I hide my background, but it's a little messy. But for them to get a little peek at who we are as well. And you're talking about the relationships, Dr. Lee, but that's one way to do it, is like, here's what's going on in my life too, because they all see us in the classroom and they don't, think about like what's going on in our lives and who we are as people. So there are, like you said, Nate, little silver linings.
And when you said that, I think about the whole turning on your camera debate. So my stance has been, well, we don't require our students to turn on their cameras as a district. But as a teacher, I've never required that from my students. And the reason why is because you don't know what's happening. However, when students do turn on their cameras, you're not just looking at the student, you are now looking at their home. You are now looking at their culture. You are now looking at their everyday life, which, like you said, we never really knew before because they came to school. You didn't know. So when you see people walking behind them, when you see that the kid has on, these big headphones, but that there are other people behind them, a whole family. Like the other day, one of my kids' students, he typically does turn on his camera, and he, somehow turned into class pet day. And so everyone was showing their pets on the camera that day, right? So when he turned on his camera to show his bearded dragon, I saw his brother, who I also teach, his older sister, and another older sibling. They were all just chilling, sitting behind them. So this is what happens when the camera, is on, is it's so much more. You really get a look and a glimpse. So when you see their decorations in their home, that's reflective of their culture, their traditions, their beliefs, their life. And so many times we just didn't get to see that before. And again, this is also one of the positives of COVID-19. When I talk about the things, it's not a losing season for us. It doesn't have to be. We now get a really intimate look into our students' lives that we never would have had before.
I think we also before chose to ignore because we didn't have an opportunity to go in. And so when COVID hits, and then you deal with all the social injustice that happens in the United States of America at one time, you've got these two terrible things that are combating with each other. And then the equity piece came out. So I look at the students because I remember how I was in school. Like we didn't have a lot of money. We dealt with roaches. Like we dealt with a lot of stuff. So to see teachers like talk down on kids because they have these things going on, it frustrates me. I don't allow it. I'll take money out my pocket and give to a kid to have some food or go buy some clothes just so that they're not made fun of or not made to be any different. And that's the piece that I love, because when I get to go around and take packets to kids that may not have internet, I get to see where they live, and I'm not there judging them. I'm there because I'm supporting them, and I want to see what resources I can help bring to make their life better. So I think that everyone should do poverty training. I think we should actually remove the blinders off. I normally do a poverty training anytime I go to a different school, just to kind of see what the mindset is. And if you're there at a school that serves 80% free reduced lunch, but most of the people that work there have never ever experienced poverty and understand what it looks like, then you're fighting a losing battle. And you're going to be definitely disconnected with what's going on. And I heard it best. It said that free and reduced lunch only talks about how kids eat, not how they learn. And we can't always continue to think just because they're on free and reduced or they're in this neighborhood that they can't learn and we have to dumb things down. No, we can still offer support and give them that same quality education. So getting back to my Zoom thing, I guess you can say, like, I love it because not only do we get to see the kids, we get to see where they come from. We get to experience that life with them. And like you said, as the more comfortable they get with you, the more they'll jump on. One day I'd actually messed up the times with my kicking it session. And I got a phone call from one of my teachers whose daughter is on campus. She's like, hey, there's like 20 kids waiting on you in the room. Well, it was an hour later. And they just went to my little Zoom room and was just having conversations, checking in with each other. They hadn't been able to see each other on Zoom. So I just logged in and just watched them interact. And just really allowing kids to be at the forefront of learning has just been absolutely amazing. And I pray that we continue to get better and that this stuff gets gone so that we can get back in our buildings and start all this stuff that's going on.
I'm actually super glad to be one of the things I told you was like to be a new teacher during COVID-19. So it's allowed me to really take a slow roll into the classroom, and I appreciate that. So, where I might have been stressed about getting my classroom together and about doing other things, I've been able to literally just focus on my students. And so that's been nice. I mean, it's, I'm able to take my time to get the physical classroom together, but still be able to establish the relationships with my students. So when I actually do get to see them, it'll be, it'll really be like this great party. Like we'll be like, oh my gosh, like this great reunion that we actually get to see each other in person. So that's going to be really exciting.
And certainly we all hope that happens much sooner rather than let's not push it any further into the future. All right. It is 10:53. So we are coming up on the 11 o'clock hour. Do the math if you live in another time zone, because I learned long ago, you don't do math live on the radio. So before we let people go, first, thank you to Brandy and Quentin for taking time, for putting your voices out there. And if you haven't watched their opening video, and again, Megan Forbes is also a part of this, make sure you check that out on the ISTE website in the conference.iste.org as I look over at the other monitor. Make sure you do that. They shared fantastic messages, and definitely connect with them, because I connected with them both within the last 5 hours, and here they are. So they are definitely going to make that connection. I'm super thankful, and I look forward to more conversations with both of you. And thank you for Nate and Batsheva for checking in. But let's start to say goodbye. So Nate, how can people connect with you, and what else are you doing at ISTE this week?
So mostly I'm going to be lurking at ISTE for the rest of this week, which is mostly going to kind of be my plan, because I'm also heading back to the classroom tomorrow, bright and early at 7 a.m. But if you'd like to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at teachfromridge. It's all one word. And then I'm also, and then our blog, our main website is www.teachingfromtheridge.com. That's where my co-author, my mom, and I hang out. So
nice. Nate, thank you for being here, and tell your friends, and maybe we'll share more of your voice later on this week, because I got 6 more nights of this. So very exciting times here in the House of Ed Tech. Batsheva.
So yeah, I am. You can find me. My podcast is called Overthrowing Education, and actually, Nate and his mom have been on it. And so you can find me on Twitter at Overthrowing Ed, and also I'm an educational consultant, and I give workshops and courses and coaching that I've been doing exclusively online all over the world right now. But I also do it in person when I can. And that is at newlensed.com.
Awesome. Dr. Lee, how can people connect with you?
Awesome. You guys can definitely kick it with Dr. Lee you can follow me at Dr. Quentin J. Lee on Instagram, Facebook, and or Twitter, and LinkedIn. I keep forgetting about that one. You can go to my website, which is drquentinjlee.com. There's more information. I do also do educational consulting and public speaking. And also you can email me at info@drquentinjlee.com. But if you head over to my YouTube channel, you'll see videos that are posted there. And when I do my Kicking It sessions, I do it from YouTube so that I can reach more people. And it's been really cool because I get to talk to educators and young people all at one time.
Isn't live streaming fun?
When it works.
And
the
it
first
works.
time I live stream, it's like, you live stream? I'm like, yeah, on Twitch. And they're like, what? Yeah, students are blown away by it. It's amazing.
Oh, the first day of school, I come on, they're like, yo, Mr. Nessie's a YouTuber. Look at the mic and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no. I'm just a nerdy podcaster. And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And, last but certainly not least, Brandy, how can people connect with you and continue to learn from you?
So I don't have a fancy YouTube channel. I don't have a podcast, right?
Yet.
I barely have a website. However, I do on Twitter. You can find me at Live and Move. And so my Twitter handle, Live and Move, is based upon one of my favorite scriptures, which talks about in him, we live, we move, and we have our being. And so when I started Twitter, it was just kind of like, that was my handle. And so who knew I was going to kind of grow into something professional, but it is what I do live by. So you can connect with me there. Also, I do go to, I teach at Dozier Middle School. And so if you go to our school website, it's dozier.nn.k12.va.us. But I would love to connect with you guys. My class motto is #DragonsWin. We are the Dozier Dragons. And so I teach them that we will be intentional about being kind, respectful, and learn from one another. And that we will, definitely make an impact on everyone, and that nothing and no one will keep us from learning from each other and from teaching each other something. So I would love to connect with you guys. I do various Zooms. Last week, I did Zoom from the Virginia Modeling and Simulation Center. Also be having other guest speakers to come into our classroom. So I would love to have any of you that would love to talk to my kids about how you are uniquely using technology in your job, career, or life.
Well, I know I'll be reaching out.
I do also have ISTE session. So I'm doing an ISTE session with Nancy Blair Black on Wednesday. It is at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's 3:30, right? Pacific. So 6:30. It's about self-care, and it's about how district leaders can actually take care of themselves. And so it's an Ignite session. We'll be doing that. I'm also on the AI panel about how students are using artificial intelligence with the ISTE artificial intelligence, like the exploration course.
Can I also push my session?
Yeah, please.
I'm doing a poster session on Wednesday at, I think it's 4:30 Pacific time. And it's about blended gamification. It's a game that I created called Battle of the Big Ideas. And it's a wonderful way to gamify your humanities curriculum. It's super fun, easy, awesome, and the kids love it. So come learn about it.
Can I pitch mine too?
Go ahead.
This is sad. I have to go to it, but I'm doing a session on Thursday with Antero Garcia on working on just simply some work that we're doing with students and communities during COVID-19, and just building those relationships and helping districts to understand the importance of reaching kids where they are. So I'm super excited. He is probably like one of the most brilliant people I've ever met and talked to, and he's so easy to talk to. And we've been having a lot of fun just getting prepared. So tune in on Thursday Thursday morning sometime. I don't know.
We'll look you up.
Check the website.
That's right. Go to conference.iste.org/2020 and log into your dashboard. All right. So it is 11 o'clock. If you've enjoyed this, I hope you'll come back each and every night this week through Saturday, December 5th. I'll be live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, recapping ISTE, amplifying your voices. And that's what the House of Ed Tech is all about. So if you're not subscribed to the podcast, you can go to chrisnessy.com/go. There's 168 episodes that I'm just giving away for free, and there's more to come in the future. That was my super Black Friday sale, just giving the podcast away. Thank you to everybody who joined in the chat, and super thanks to Nate, Batsheva, Quentin, and Brandy. Enjoy your ISTE, and I will see everybody tomorrow. Wave goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye. Thank you, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.